And so, yeah, we are at the third stage of our development. We are the third wave of our development. And as you know, yeah, I've briefed you before, the Malaysian government pursues a regional approach to economic development with the realization that each region is unique, each region has its own strong points, has its own value propositions, has its own idiosyncrasies. Yeah? Setiap negeri ada PE ada sendiri. Faham PE? Okay, with that, yeah, the regional corridor authorities were established, and each region had been identified so that we could actually develop, yeah, and mengimarahkan lagi setiap ekonomi di setiap wilayah, ya, melalui pembangunan berkonsepkan koridor. So, in the first wave, what we did was to put in catalytic infrastructure development. We're talking about the big ticket infrastructure items, such as the electrified double tracking, such as the second Penang Bridge, such as making the Penang airport bigger. And this has caused a change in the dynamics of the north, where two new spikes of growth emerged. We're talking about the Kulim Sungai Petani area and the Taiping and Kemunting area. Then came to the second wave of development, where we're talking about capacity development and bringing in the private sector into the Northern Corridor. So from 2009 all the way to the end of last year, we managed 79.9 billion ringgit in terms of private sector investments, and we created 103,597 job opportunities. And leveraging from this momentum, we looked at what to do next. We looked at where to take the Northern Corridor, yeah? And that is encapsulated in the third wave, where we have development being driven by the initiatives identified in Blueprint 2.0, development being driven by the directions set out in Blueprint 2.0, and these directions are put in the blueprint, which are derived from inputs from all of you. Yeah? You know what you provided, you know what you have contributed, and we are very happy that all of you participated in this. And in the blueprint, there were 80 projects being identified. But let's look at why we put in, yeah, the elements of the first wave and why we've built on from that. We needed to have improvements in logistics. We needed to have improvements in connectivity, yeah, to boost our economic growth, to take things to the next level. If you notice in the video, yeah, there was one thing that was being mentioned. It's about transportation, it's about connectivity. And in the labs that we had in the 4 states, yeah, empat negeri menjerit, yeah, empat negeri menjerit. Yeah, they all shouted the same song. It's the song of connectivity. We want connectivity. We want enhanced connectivity. We want improvements to our connectivity. We're not just talking about physical connectivity. We're also talking about virtual connectivity. Why is this important? Yeah, why is this so crucial for the region? It is because connectivity has the power to integrate economies. Yeah? We're talking about changes in the way people trade, changes in the way people invest. Yeah? And we're talking about forging business links arising from connectivity. And the fact that we put in improvements in logistics, if you notice in the slide, yeah, you have the double tracking. We've upgraded the Padang Besar terminal. We're doing the Perlis Inland Port. And then we're also about to launch Rapid Sungai Petani and Rapid Manjung, because we've launched recently Rapid Kemunting with great success. Now, why have we done all this? Yeah? When you improve connectivity, you improve inclusivity. When you improve connectivity, you improve productivity. Let's take item number 9, for example, rapid Kemunting. Yeah? Kemunting and Taiping, to me, are two towns pretending to be one. Datuk Kamal, betul ya? Two towns pretending to be one. Was it one town pretending to be two? I'm not even sure, yeah? Okay, so with this, yeah, it stimulates economic activity. Yeah? Connectivity even talk about, let's talk about creation of new job opportunities arising from improvements in connectivity. So this is why we're doing this. Connectivity is what started it all. And this is why we need to continuously improve, continuously enhance, and continuously augment connectivity in the region. And we will leverage, we'll be leveraging on 3 of these plans for better economic reintegration of the region. We're talking about the Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand growth triangle, because when you do connectivity, it's not just about connectivity in the region, but connectivity between the countries. Because, as I mentioned earlier in previous years, the Northern Corridor handles 2/3 of all South Thailand exports. So how do we take advantage of this? How do we capitalize on this? So we looked at these 3 plans and formulated the way forward. Now, how do we look at, how do we look at cross-border integration? How do we look at trans-border economies because of this connectivity? How do we reach out? Yeah? There are several permutations to this. First is input-driven. I was involved in the Asian Development Bank team to develop special economic zones, cross-border special economic zones. And everybody hears of One Belt, One Road. But the bits and pieces of this, how China engages with countries along its border, is to actually create the special economic zones to bring in Chinese companies and collaborate with the local companies in actually enhancing economic opportunities in the border areas, which they feel would be the feeder for its One Belt, One Road engagements with the countries. Then you have the second one, which is a complementary model, where we talk about things like the United States and Mexico, and of course Singapore and Batam. This is where each location leverages on its competitive advantage and leverages on how it can use the strengths of the respective locations to generate economic opportunities, to generate economic output. In the third model, you have the synergistic model. This is taking the complementary model to the next level, where we even input where people stay. A prime example of this is where Shenzhen links up with Hong Kong, where Iskandar, Malaysia, links up with Singapore. But what I'd really like to show you is the fourth one. The fourth model was an eye-opener for me. The fourth model is a bit unique, because if you look at the first model, you have separate authorities. The first model had separate authorities. The second and third models had collaborative frameworks, but still separate authorities. No matter how much freedom they accorded in terms of transactions, they still had separate authorities. But the fourth model is the border area between Sweden and Denmark. This is a wholly integrated model where you even have a single transnational body that regulates this. You won't even be sure where one ends and the other begins, because it is seamless. I went across the bridge. I pun tak tahu bila masa meninggalkan Sweden dan bila masa masuk Denmark. Ini satu keadaan yang ganjil. Mereka cakap pun lebih kurang sama aja. So, how do you envision this? This is something that takes the game to the next level. So it is effectively a single borderless region. So because these are four main models that I have seen, in terms of how trans-border economies are being implemented. Now, in the era of the knowledge economy, you have two main drivers. We're talking about technology push, we're talking about economic liberalization. In the case of technology push, technology changes all the time. You need to run with technology, otherwise you'll be left behind. And in the case of economic liberalization, people often speak about how investments come in. But when investments come in, your borders are open, when investments come in, there will also be a time, there will also be a case where investments leave the country. My hometown in the 1970s was a boom era where a lot of textile companies located themselves in Kemunting, and the place was very prosperous. But by the mid-80s, I think the bulk of them had gone off and located themselves in other locations. So suddenly there was a vacuum, there was a gap, and suddenly the industrial park was filled with dilapidated, vacant factory lots. So economic liberalization, actually there are two sides to every coin. Now, suddenly, this new thing has come in and caused a major disruption, which is connectivity. Suddenly things change. Suddenly you have this new game changer. What do we do with connectivity? How do we manage connectivity? How do we look at connectivity in the context of trans-border economies? Now, in the context of the trans-border economies, you see the changes that are happening. The world economy will be more connected due to improvements in the connectivity element of things. We're talking about changes in technology to bring human interaction and businesses closer. Sometimes I feel too close. Ini pun ada problem juga. If you look at internet connectivity, now people like to update status. And what irks me the most at the moment, I'm from an era where people don't update status so much. So, you know the WhatsApp punya app, ada status kan? And they impose the status on you. You cannot block it. Or I don't know how to block it. So I don't want to know your status. Don't send me your status. So this is, but it is the interconnectedness of the world now. You have the smartphone. You have this thing where previously a phone was a phone, but now you use the phone for all sorts of things. You're talking about things coming together. And even in the case of transportation, people talk about the need to move around in a different way. You talk about autonomous vehicles. You talk about how the vehicles can record where you go, what you do, and how do you hail? How do you hail new modes of transport, like Grab? I think they're offering 5 ringgit discount, 6 ringgit discount. They're offering a discount specific for the Utaraku campaign within Pangkor Dialogue. So hurry up and take up this discount. But herein lies the game changer. Things are changing. Do you hop on the bus or do you resist this change? And in trans-border economies, there are also initiatives that will cause changes in the way we do things. One example is the digital free trade zone. I had a discussion tadi. Kalau digital free trade zone, pasal apa nak kena ada area pula? Tak payah ada area lah. Mestilah virtual. Awak nak ada area pula. So, what is it that we are embracing? Do we want to embrace this? Yeah? And I tell you, this will be another game changer in the trans-border economies. The third component is this, yeah? It's about the people. Competition, yeah, in this new era will not be between countries. Competition will not be between states. Yeah, it will be between cities. It will be within clusters of cities or mega cities. Kalau kita tengok, bukan dah negara lawan negara, tak ada dah. Ya? Kalau kita tengok fun lagi, Manchester United lawan Everton ke, fun lagi Indonesia lawan Brunei. Club, yeah, competition is more intense within cities. We are more tribal that way. And even in the new economy, the manifestation of that tribalism comes to this. So, how do we manage trans-border economies in light of what we have in front of us? Even in ASEAN, yeah, there's a clear ASEAN Community Economic Blueprint 2025, where it clearly states that the ASEAN economy will be more integrated in future. And one critical component is the improvements in physical connectivity. So for this very, very cross-border agenda, there's a clear connectivity item, yeah, embedded in the plan. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, this is what I'm going to leave you with. Where do we go from here? Are we about to start on a new journey? Or are we at the end of the journey and whatever's happening in front, we don't know and we don't want to know or we don't want to be a part of? So, itu macam soalan cepu mas. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for indulging me in this conversation, albeit a bit one-sided. So, sekian, terima kasih. Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Datuk Reza Rafiq, for the insightful speech. Ladies and gentlemen, without the support of the private sector, the government's effort to boost socio-economic growth in the 4 states of northern region would be futile. The private sector acts as our check and balance who continues to open the window of opportunities when we have not seen before and together allow us to ensure that the social and economic benefits of development are passed down to every citizen in this region. Ladies and gentlemen, the future holds many uncertainties and terms such as digital economy, industrial 4.0, and disruption are foreign words that we must learn to adopt in our vocabulary. We are pleased to invite to the stage Justin Tew, the head of Grab Klang Valley, to speak on the importance of government and private sector's engagement as well as opportunities for SMEs in the economy of the future.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Well, I must say that I'm actually very honored to be part of this Pangkor dialogue between this prestigious event that we have, and also to be amongst all these prestigious captains of industry, as what they call it, right? And it's really exciting to actually see the growth of the economic growth in the different regions that we have. Specifically Uttaraku, and how Grab plays a part in the transport segment, helping towards the connectivity of the people within this region. And as we saw earlier, that with higher connectivity, there will be better economic development. So let me introduce myself again. My name is Justin, and I actually head the operations for Grab Car and Grab Taxi outside of Klang Valley. So northern region is actually within my purview. And I am personally very interested to be here to share with you Grab's journey today, because I joined Grab about 2.5 years ago, and given that Grab's only 5 years old, I'm kind of like a dinosaur in Grab. And in that time, I've actually seen how Grab has grown from a little startup to where it is today, starting from one city in Klang Valley, and today we are in 25 cities just in Malaysia alone. So wherever you go, every state that you travel to, you don't have to worry about your transportation because Grab has got it covered. Okay? So before I move on, I'm just going to play a little game. I know it's, I think it's about 4 something. You guys just had your tea and all that, so maybe you're feeling a bit sleepy. So let me just get a bit of crowd participation. Is that okay with you guys? Is that okay? Okay, great. So if I can get everyone to stand up. Yep, stand up. Thank you. Okay, this game's going to be quite simple. There's a prize at the end of it. I'll tell you later. So how it works is that if the answer to my question is no, then you have to sit down. Do you understand? Okay, I repeat again, yeah? I'm going to ask 3 questions. So after each question, if your answer is no, then you will sit down. Understand? If you understand, give me a thumbs up. Great, okay. So first question, who has heard of Grab? If no, then you can sit down now. Who has heard of Grab? Actually, let me rephrase. That's not a yes/no question. Who has heard of Grab? If yes, you stand up. If no, you sit down. Okay, great. So second question, who has used Grab services? So either Grab Taxi or Grab Car. Okay, if yes, then keep on standing. So I see about maybe a quarter. Okay, great. So it looks like we have good participation here. And the last question is, do you know about GrabPay or Grab Rewards? Oh, now we see more people sitting down. Okay, congratulations for the rest of you. You have a promo code called Utaraku 2017. It's RM6 times 5, RM5 times 6 times to cater for the 3 days that you're coming to and from Kasarina in Meru. So give yourselves a hand for that participation. Great, so let me just jump into it. Let me take you back in terms of history, how Grab started. So I'm sure a number of you may have heard of MyTaxi. And MyTaxi started in 2012. And on our first day, there was 11,000 bookings just on the first day. Do you think that's impressive? Okay, maybe only I think that's impressive, but on our first day we had, thank you, Dr. Reza. In fact, let me tell you a story. When Dr. Reza met me earlier, he said, oh, hi, Anthony. I was like, no, okay, my name is Justin, so I just represent Anthony. He's got bigger biceps than me, you know. Yeah, so unfortunately, Anthony couldn't be here today, so I'm representing him on behalf to share with you Grab's journey. And obviously, Anthony was there from the start. They launched MyTaxi with 11,000 bookings per day. And we managed to fulfill a few hundred rides with 40 taxi drivers that we have. And these taxi drivers are our people. I mean, they are in Klang Valley. And the riders are our people as well. But this 11,000 figure that that I shared with you here, actually is not my main point. My main point is that why was there even 11,000 bookings to start with, right? I mean, it's not like we were giving free promo codes back then. We didn't have the money to do so, right? So it must be something that triggered this 11,000 bookings. And the question brings me to my next point is why we exist. So the reason there was 11,000 bookings is because we were trying to solve a local problem. And to illustrate this local problem thing, I'm going to tell you 2 stories. One story is from Hui Ling, our co-founder, and the other story is actually my own story. Yeah? I'm going to talk a bit more about myself, so forgive me, okay? So in Hui Ling's case, she used to work as a consultant, and she would work late nights frequently. And during these late nights, obviously she needs to get back home, and at that time, the only way to do so is actually to book a taxi to get back home. And for some reason, her mom was always worried about her and would always call her all the way from the point she took the taxi until she reached back home, right? Just to ensure that she arrives home safely. So at that point, she thought, could I do something to actually address this issue? Okay? So that was obviously before my taxi started. So if we move forward a little bit, and let's say now my taxi has started, and there comes me, right? I was supposed to go to the airport that particular day, and my mom was supposed to send me to the airport, but she was running late, and I was like, okay, mommy, if you don't come in time, I'm going to miss my flight. Okay, so I was desperate, and I was contemplating, should I go down? I live in a condo, so should I go down to the street, try to hail a taxi? It was 2 p.m. in the afternoon, quite hot, and I've got big baggage, right? So I thought, okay, maybe I'll scroll through my phone. I'll look for those uncle taxis, you know, those your mom's friend who drives people to the airport, that kind of thing. And then I realized, these guys need at least like 6 hours advance notice so they can prepare their car to come and pick you up. So out of desperation, actually, I went to my smartphone. I searched in my Play Store taxi booking app, or taxi booking service, actually. And voila, like my taxi came up first, right? And bear in mind, that time I didn't know what my taxi was. I just needed to get a taxi to the airport. Okay, so I installed the app and I booked it, not really realizing that, or not really expecting that I'm going to get, wowed by it. But I was actually pleasantly surprised. Like I got a taxi within 10 minutes. The taxi came right at my doorstep, well, at the lift lobby. And I got in a taxi and got to the airport in time, right? I didn't have to buy another plane ticket, in other words. So, judging by at least half the room that stood up here, I'm pretty sure, actually more than 3/4 on my second question, have you used the service before? You've probably been in the same situation, right, before. And so that is what I mean by solving a real local problem. It's because there is this problem that existed that, half the audience or more than half the audience here would use my taxi. And that's the story of how we started. Right, and we realized actually this problem is not just limited to Malaysia, not just limited to Klang Valley. Right, if you go to Philippines, how many have been to Philippines? Yeah, you know the traffic's pretty bad, right? And if you want to get a public transport here by the side of the road, probably more taxis will pass you by before you actually get a taxi. So we thought, hey, our app could actually fix this as well, or help to fix this issue. In Singapore, similarly, we see that, yes, there is a lot of taxis that you can take, but again, how many have been to Singapore and waited at a taxi stand? During peak hours. Do you know how it is, right? You wait in line, maybe 5 people, and then reach your turn, oh, no more taxi already. The 5 taxis have already took the first 5 passengers, and then you're standing there waiting. So by having the ability to book through the My Taxi app back then, and now known as Grab, we help to alleviate these local problems that people face in their own city, in their own countries, right? And then we thought, hey, if we move to Philippines, we move to Singapore, we're in Malaysia, why not tapao everything? Southeast Asia, this is our home. It just makes sense that we put our efforts into Southeast Asia. And how many of you all know that Southeast Asia has 620 million people? Does anyone know that? Okay, a few. How many of you all know that in these 620 million, 200 million is actually on the digital economy, meaning like, they are able to engage on smartphones and all that. Did anyone know that? Okay, one person. I'll give you another promo code later. So actually, this 200 million translates to 50 billion USD worth of value in terms of transaction, right? And it's a huge opportunity. Just to give you a bit of scale, 200 million is actually larger than the entire EU combined in terms of number of people, and is larger than North America. So if you're thinking of hey, the grass is greener on the other side. Actually, it's quite green in Southeast Asia. Yeah, it rains a lot also, so it's kind of greener. Okay? And with this huge opportunity, actually, there's a lot of unique infrastructure challenges that we have. For example, we are starting to have more dense urban areas. People are moving up the middle class income, and they're moving to the city, and that creates, more congestion. And public transport is just trying to catch up with that. At least for most major cities that are outside of the main hub. For example, like in the northern corridor, I'll take Penang. Right? Penang's talking about having LRT, but KL has had LRT since, 15, 20 years, since my high school days. They've already had LRTs. So they're starting to catch up, and this presents a very unique opportunity for us to tap into. And at the end of the day, we have to focus our efforts to cater to these unique opportunities in Southeast Asia. All right, and if you don't believe me, right, I just picked a quote to actually support why invest in the development of public transport. And this quote talks about how it relates to the economic development. I believe Dr. Reza touched on it earlier as well. Domestic transportation is a key factor for economic growth, says Amitabh Khan from Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor. So this was like the closest I could find in terms of corridors, right? Okay, and how does it do it, right? Economic opportunities are related to the mobility of people, goods, and information. High-density transport infrastructure ensures that we are highly connected networks in order to increase the levels of development. Okay, maybe those are very big words, right? So let me put it down in simpler terms. Let's say, take for example, Perlis, okay? So if in Kanga, anyone from Kanga here, by the way? Oh, great, one person. Does Kanga have a mall? There's a mall? Does it have a cinema? Okay, great. So for those who in Kanga who have cars, then obviously this doesn't quite apply, but you have your students, your high school students, your university students, right? And let's say they want to go out and watch a movie. Okay, and before Grab was there, they had to think about, okay, which Kereta Sapu can I call to get a ride, reach to the cinema, and then actually the first part is not a problem. The coming back is a problem, right? It's 11 p.m., 12 p.m. at night. How am I ever going to get a taxi to get back home to my hostel or where I live, right? So by having this, what we call last mile connectivity, people can get to the cinema and get back home as easy as a tap of your smartphone. And when this thing can happen, these guys would then go and watch a movie in the cinema more often. When they watch the movie in the cinema more often, what happens? When they buy the ticket, they pay money, right? So they pay money, then that encourages the growth of the cinema industry, if you want it. And that leads to development, economic development. So when people are able to get around easier, moving about, not having to worry about, how am I going to get home or anything like that, they are more likely to do that activity. And in doing that activity, it creates economic liquidity, because people are spending money. When they're spending money, it helps the economy to grow. So this is how having good transportation helps towards economic development. Okay, so in helping us to guide our path as we journey on this, it's already our 5th year this year, Grab have actually adopted 3 missions. And the first one is actually providing the safest transportation in Southeast Asia. So I talked about earlier Hui-Ling's example where, she had to worry about safety every time she got back home. This is the kind of thing that we want to tell people, that when you use the Grab app, you can be sure that your safety is of paramount importance. For example, in the Grab app, you have the emergency button, right? You can always press that and call the police immediately. All your booking details as you take the ride, you can share with your friends and family, so they can actually track where you're going within the app. Imagine in the old days, well, okay, not really old days, but prior to my taxi days. If you take a taxi, no one knows where you went, right? There's no way to track where the taxi went. And if you had a good, honest driver, then great. But if you don't, he could just, do something that is not too good to you, right? So by having this app, we aim to provide the safest transportation in Southeast Asia. And number two is actually improving the lives of our partners. So when we talk about our partners here, it's mainly our driver partners. Obviously, they provide the service for you as you use the app, and they generate money from it, right? So we're always looking at how we can help them generate more money so that it can help their livelihoods. In fact, their income is 48% higher than the average income of workers within Malaysia. So it helps them towards their productivity. And lastly, making transportation accessible to all. So in Malaysia, we have Grab Car, Grab Taxi, but in other cities, for example, like Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, we have Grab Bike as well. So the reason why we have that is to first, cater to the local needs, but also to cater to the different economic power or spending power that they have, right? Not everyone can afford a car. For example, if you go to Vietnam, a taxi is actually a luxury. So with all the proliferation of bikes around, people can actually get around easier, okay? And it's translated into the numbers, right? I know some of you here may be bankers, maybe people who like numbers, so I'm just going to throw some numbers. We have over 1.3 million drivers across our networks, operating in 111 cities across 7 countries, and over 59 million mobile downloads. That means 59 million users. So if you imagine 200 million, we're kind of there, like another 75% more to go, okay? And this is the thing that I'm really proud of, because as I mentioned earlier, I take care of operations of non-Klang Valley, and in just 6 months, we grew from 5 cities to 25 cities. So today, if you travel anywhere within Malaysia, well, most cities, including if you look at the northern corridor, we have 6 cities there: Penang, Sungai Petani, Alustar, Kangai, Langkawi, and Ipoh. You can be sure that you can get around easily and don't have to worry about getting around. Don't have to worry about taking public transport. Okay, and this is just our range of services. I mentioned earlier in other cities we have Grab Bike, Grab Share, and Grab Express. But in Malaysia, we have Grab Taxi and Grab Car because that makes sense the most for us. All right, just to clarify, some of you may be asking, oh, you've got this My Taxi, Grab, Grab Car, Grab Taxi. It's like so many buzzwords, right? But just to share, Grab is the umbrella company. And Grab used to be known as My Taxi before we rebranded in 2016. And these are just the different product groups or services, as what you would call it. So if today you open your Grab app, you'll be able to see, compare the prices of Grab Taxi, Grab Car. In Klang Valley, we have Grab Car Premium with the bigger cars, and Grab Share will be something like carpooling, okay? So that's just this is a background of sharing what Grab is. It's really enlightening to know that a big number of you here already know what Grab is. So let's talk about how, in achieving our mission, what we try to achieve. At the end of the day, we are always investing in our cities so that they can move better. And how we do that is through 3 pillars here. Investing in our driver partners, investing in our passengers, and investing in the environment. So let me go through it. As I mentioned earlier, we're always looking at stretching our drivers' partners' earning potential. And on average, our Grab driver partners earn 48% more on a per-hour basis compared to the average worker wages across all of Grab's market. Okay? And we're looking beyond just fare, right? At the end of the day, fare is what you generate, but you also have costs as a driver. Your car, you have to pay for your petrol, for your servicing, and things like that. So we make sure that we partner with strategic partners to lower their cost of service. So, for example, we partner with Petronas to give points for them to redeem for fuel. We partner with Perodua to try to offer lower rates of purchase for new cars. And also we partner with different for example, Tesco to provide discounts for when they go shopping in Tesco. Okay, and as I mentioned before, safety is one of the key pillars that we look at. We have this dash cam program, which we first rolled out to 100 women drivers, and this year we roll out to another 3,500 drivers. We've negotiated deals where people can purchase it at a lower price so that, you know, as they drive, everything can be recorded and for their safety purposes. In terms of our drivers themselves, we have provided first aid courses so that they learn in case of any emergency that happens. In fact, I think about a month or 2 months ago, there was our first Grab baby from our passenger that actually gave birth in the car. So that was a really exciting time for us. Okay, and the PDRM button that I mentioned as well. In terms of safety of our passenger, investing into our passengers, because we ensure that our drivers are vetted through properly and they go through the correct training. On average, a Grab ride has 6 times less than the national average in terms of accidents. And when we did a survey, we found that 8 out of 10 females actually feel safer booking with Grab. And as I mentioned earlier as well, we have this emergency button that is a one tap to call the police in case of any emergencies. Thank you. In terms of a rewarding ride, so we try to make the experience more than just taking a ride. When you actually book a Grab ride, you get these Grab points or Grab reward points, which you can redeem with our different partners. And we're ramping up on this program. Another local thing that we did was Grab Chat. And what Grab Chat does is, if you, let's say you go to a foreign country, say you go to Vietnam, and you type in English, that same text will be translated to the driver in Vietnamese. So he understands what you're trying to tell him, and when he types back a text to you, it will be translated back into English. So it is one of the things that we do to address the local needs, to help our passengers have a better experience. And in terms, that's on a personal note. But on the corporate side, we have this thing called Grab for Work, where we've signed up 5,000 companies across the region to make their claims for transportation more seamless, okay? And it has helped us increase productivity and reduce admin errors and all that kind of things. All right, and convenience for those who matters. We make it easy for passengers to book, especially like in places like malls where there are many entrances. We partner with malls to ensure we put up signages where the driver can see the passenger and the passenger knows where to wait for the driver. And also, in terms of efficiency, we have reduced the travel time by 53%. And by having this Grab Chat feature, as I mentioned earlier, 8 in 10 passengers cancel less. And finally, in terms of the environmental part, we have actually taken more cars off the road by people using this ride-sharing basis. And that has helped us save 3.2 million kilograms of carbon emission, okay? And so, in doing all this, obviously it hasn't been, I mean, it looks great on the outside, but it's actually a big journey that I've been taking, and there are some key lessons that I want to share with the audience here today, because, yeah, we can talk about ourselves, but how does it apply for the audience here today, okay? So number one is solve real local problems. And I mentioned this time and time again, like at the end of the day, the app is just an app. Anyone can build the app, but really, what is the issue that you're trying to address? I gave the example of 11,000 bookings a day. If we just built the app and without a purpose, I bet you 11,000 bookings wouldn't just come like that. Okay, so for those who are thinking about their entrepreneurial journey or those who are thinking of scaling their businesses, always think back, what is the root problem that you're trying to solve, and what is that local problem that you're trying to solve? Number two is unleash the power of data. So in the early days, yes, we hustled a lot. We tried to do a lot of things to get ourselves out there. But as we grew and scaled, it was very important for us to look at data sets. Every day, my bread and butter is actually to open up the dashboard, look at how the demand and supply balance looks like for the previous days. And we use these patterns and trends to plan for the future. For example, when there's a long weekend, there's school holidays, there's a tip in balance and supply. And in fact, we've also extended this information to MDEC, who can use this balance of supply and demand towards their improving traffic congestion and road safety. So they can plan better in terms of like where to put the traffic light, how long to put it for. And finally, the third point I want to add is disrupt or be disrupted. So there's this key word in terms of technological disruption, and you must always disrupt yourself before somebody else disrupts you in order to stay competitive. And the bonus one is basically, always invest in your people, because at the end of the day, you have all this tech, but if you don't have passionate people to do the job, then your company will not go to greater heights. And lastly, I just want to, do we have time? I guess we don't have time for this video. All right. So thank you for your time. This is all I can present. Sorry for the overtime that we had. Hope you managed to get something out of it. Thank you.
Again, thank you, Justin. And ladies and gentlemen, as I have said earlier, the private sector is to the government. A cup of warm water is to the flavor bag of herbal tea. Then together, we make magic happens. And our special Utaraku session brings together representatives from the government through the Indonesia-Malaysia-Thailand Growth Triangle, IMTGT, and Mindanao Development Authority, MINDA, and NCIA to speak about the importance of unlocking the potentials of trans-border economy. Perhaps trans-border means more than just customs checkpoints and passport stamps, but also the use of e-commerce and digital economy to maximize the potential of business. Moderated by Kamarul Bahrain Arun from Eswatini, I hereby invite to the stage MINDA's Head of Investment and Investors Relations, Maria Vilma Belches, and Head of IMTGT JBC Malaysia, Datuk Fauzi Harun, and also the Chief Executive of NCIA, Datuk Reza Rafiq.
Test 1, 2. Assalamualaikum. It's almost good evening. Time is always a factor. But thank you so much for coming here to be at the Dialogue 1 for Pangkor Dialogue. The theme is Utaraku. And before I talk about the topic, I would like to answer Datuk Reza is particularly the host. The video of Utaraku, soalan yang ditanyakan apa maksudnya menjadi orang utara, saya orang utara. Jadi saya nak jawab saya begini ya. Please bear with me for our guests from overseas. Gemilang utara bicaranya sederhana, sinarnya bercahaya, lawanya tak terkira. Orang utara lagaknya sederhana, luarnya bersahaja, jiwanya membara. Terima kasih kerana datang untuk hari ini. For our overseas guests, what I was saying in the poem kind of way is the northerners, they might be very moderate, but inside, their heart is full of fire. And I have personified that even at World Economic Forum Davos. So I'll bring the best of the world and the local wisdom to this discussion called Unlocking the Future of Trans-Border Economy. I would like to start with Datuk Reza, because Datuk Reza gave us about 15 minutes of the low and the highs of what is in store for the Northern Corridor, but at the same time, he put to us the challenges. Kedah Perlis itu sepadannya nama Kok Diang, but he gave us the example of this nice bridge between Sweden and Denmark. And I've been to Sweden a few times. So, Dato' Reza, if you can please, you know, I was earlier with the Yang Muhammad Deputy Prime Minister, we're talking about halal industry, and that's 42 billion. But in the Blueprint 2.0, I'm looking at 300 billion Malaysian ringgit for the northern part. So, where is the gap that you would like to see unlock for the trans-border economy? Because if I travel all the way back to a very difficult tragedy, it's called the tsunami of 2004. When I was wearing the Malaysian flag in Aceh, and I arrived there as a volunteer on the third day, there were still thousands of bodies to help. But because of the small Malaysian flag on my vest, so I could do what others cannot do, because Gerakan Aceh Merdeka, GAM, and Tentera Nasional Indonesia, TNI, they were still at war. But Malaysia, this neighbor from across the straits, could become the peacekeeper, and we could halt the military operations from both sides for us to go and help. Dia panggil evakuasi at the place. So now, what is the thing that have been blocked before, Dato' Reza, in terms of, because economic opportunities doesn't know borders. Economic opportunities doesn't discriminate people. Economic opportunities are opportunities. What is the top one thing that you would like to see change for trans-border economy, sort of liberalization, if we can put it that way?
Okay, my wish list, Kamarul, is actually for all parties to work together, for all parties to be together in coming up with the same game plan. We have developed a lot of thoughts. We have developed a lot of strategies, a lot of action plans in the IMTGT, and over time we see some of them being realized. So my biggest wish would be to actually put more will into the delivery of the initiatives that have already been set out in the IMTGT, and also in the Border Economic Transformation Program. If we are able to deliver the action items that have already been set out, that have already been structured into the game, we can see things being taken to the next level, because the border economies are still lagging as compared to the one in the mainstream.
Okay. Ms. Maria Vilma, I'm actually very pro gender empowerment, so I'm going to ask the hard question to the Malaysians first. For Datuk Fauzi Naim Haji Noh, IMTGT ni, if we go to Thailand, and if I believe Economic Intelligence Report, Reuters, Thomson, the southern part of Thailand is the poorest part. But when I talk to University of Patani, or when I talk to the Wakaf and Zakat people of Thailand, even based in Bangkok, they are not. If you count the number of spending for Umrah and Haji alone, that's a huge part of the GDP of Thailand. I have my great-grandmother's blood from the Southern Thai. At that time, it was not Southern Thai, but that's a long story of Kedah Tour. But history has shown us that once we were strong, because the borders doesn't matter. When it was Srivijaya right up until what is now Phuket. When it was Malacca all the way right until what is now Manila. So, in terms of economy, can we go back to that, even though bureaucracy is still one of the most pertinent points that is slowing down innovation? The reason Grab doesn't offer Gojek-style motorcycle ride in my hometown of Perlis and Kanga is because the authorities in Malaysia hasn't allowed us to make motorcycles a public transportation mode. It's not within our Road Transport Act, for example. So for IMTGT and unlocking trans-border mechanism, how do we take away bureaucracy? Because if not, the underground economy goes faster. Perlis might be small, but we have the record of having the biggest mass grave the country has ever seen. So if we don't do it, it's going to happen anyway, but it's going to happen underground. Datuk Reza wants it to be above ground so that he can put it in GDP.
Yes.
Okay.
Datuk Fauzi.
Kamarul, somebody from Asian Development Bank mentioned the era before we have the borders, we have the immigration, we have the, can I say, security at the border. They mentioned about that era is a Sunda land. Sunda area. Sunda land. Sunda land. Mr. Ludwig Krieber. The business been been done, been run earlier, and this area, the MTGT area, is, can I say, the most prominent area that until today is the biggest producer of rubber and the biggest producer of oil palm.
Right.
We have around 600 over kilometers square of the area, and we have almost about 80,000 people. And for Thailand, it is from Phuket down to Narathiwat, is about 14 provinces. Yes. For Malaysia, 8 states, excluding Johor, Terengganu, and Pahang, and also Sarawak, Sabah, Sarawak. And for Indonesia, is the whole of Sumatra. Yeah. MTGT was formed in 1993 by the 3 Prime Ministers and President. Surely is away from Putrajaya, away from Kuala Lumpur at that time, is away from Jakarta, is away from Bangkok. Surely the idea is within the policy of the government, within the procedure of the government, how the business, how the people can enhance their living without touching so much on the policy and procedures.
Yes.
That what happened until 1993 until today. Mm-hmm. Today, MTGT is coming up with the new implementation blueprint mentioned by Dr. Reza until 2025. Bigger and bigger, can I say, promise toward the people of this particular area. The main objective is to enhance the income of the people. Thank you.
Prosperity no bounds. But this is where I want to go, to Mindanao. Population of Mindanao is nearly
24 million.
Yes, not far from the total population of Malaysia as a whole. But I mean, I'm at fault also because the media keeps on talking about the conflict. So today from you, at least in Ipoh, in Perak, can we get the economic summary from you? Because when I'm looking at the data, there's a lot of things. Yes. There's the fisheries, there's the agriculture, coconut, and everything else. Yes. But at the end of the day, how do we move Mindanao prosperity ahead? Because even Indonesia, that has had reformasi in 1998, they're looking at least 500 million as infrastructure development. Where would Mindanao come up, for example, with this kind of capacity building? Datuk Reza said that we're now in the 3rd wave, but for Mindanao, you're still grappling with the 1st wave. So what do you hope to have? Maybe in the spirit of IMT-GT, it can be BIMP Yaga, for example.
Thank you, sir. But before I answer, just let me take this opportunity to thank Dr. Rafiq for inviting Minda. We don't always get this opportunity to talk about Mindanao. The Mindanao that most people know, like you said, is the Mindanao that you see in the national papers or the Mindanao that you read about in mainstream media. But trust me, Mindanao is so much more than what you see and what you read in media. So that's maybe why if you hear our president talk bad about mainstream media, that's because he comes from Mindanao and he knows, you know where he's coming from when he says he hates the mainstream media. The Mindanao that most people know is the Mindanao in conflict, but that's hardly the real Mindanao. Mindanao actually produces most of the food that feeds the whole of the Philippines. We produce most of the raw materials that fuels the industries. We produce 100% of the rubber in the whole country. We produce 90% of the cacao. If you get to eat food coming from the Philippines, it's most likely that it came from Mindanao. And Mindanao used to be actually, before the establishment of a formal government of the Philippines, Mindanao used to be the center of trade. And we've been trading with Malaysia, with Brunei, with Indonesia, with our neighboring countries in Asia, way before, and we share very deep cultural and historical ties. But, because of the unitary system of government and Mindanao being the farthest from the center, most of Mindanao's priorities get into the bottom of the list, and it's still a challenge for us now. So we've actually, the strategy that we're doing right now is very close to what Malaysia is doing. We're developing the Mindanao Development Corridors because we know that you cannot approach development, you cannot do development planning in silos. You have to look at value chains. You have to look at symbiosis of industries. So although we have regional development planning mechanisms, we also have the Mindanao Development Corridor as a planning strategy. And it's also, the components, of course, are, interconnectivity. So a lot of the work that we're doing right now is really making sure that we have the infrastructure in place for interconnectivity. So we're doing a lot of airport and port projects, and we're very excited to tell you that the first railway system is going to be built in Mindanao very soon. And
what? There's no clap? Come on! First railway system. Thank you.
And although it's still very challenging because most of the planning is being done in the central government in Manila, and the people there are so busy solving Manila's problems of traffic that, you have to do a lot of things to get attention from the central government. But we are very happy that the President Rodi Duterte, actually comes from Mindanao, the first Mindanaoan president, yes. And we come from the same city. So we're very happy because he knows the problem. So in terms of general policy, the major move right now is to really shift to a federal form of government.
Correct.
Because for us, that's the only way we can address the concern.
A lot of the people here are entrepreneurs, small, medium enterprises. Even if they work for the government, because we're so close to our election, they need to talk about wealth creation and inclusiveness of income. So if I take Mindanao, right now might be looked upon as the most challenged region in ASEAN, for example. But what if I turn it on its head and say, Malaysia, for example, is a net importer of food. Betul tak, Dr. Fauzi?
Yes.
Correct? Yes. Even in the Northern Corridor,
yes.
It's supposed to be the rice bowl. Nanti we go to Datuk Reza later for that. But if Mindanao works together with Sabah, Sarawak, and Kalimantan, that could be the most powerful food security hub producer, not only for Southeast Asia, 620 million people, but all the way to China and down there to Australia. So is that kind of planning inside the blueprint of Mindanao?
Yes, correct. In Mindanao and in the Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, East ASEAN Growth Area Cooperation. And it's not just food, it's also tourism. This particular area, the BIMP Iaga sub-region, is where you can see the richest biodiversity and emerging ecotourism destinations. And it's something that we're really working on in Mindanao, because you have to be able to strike a balance between protecting your biodiversity and taking advantage of the tourism industry. So there's a BIMP Iaga vision for 2025, and we're looking at interconnectivity in terms of infrastructure, interconnectivity in terms of the software, the policies. We're happy to announce that there's going to be a flight coming from Davao, the city where I come from, to KL in December. They're launching a direct flight, and that's a big thing for us because...
Is it low cost or...?
They're doing a promo, by the way, in December. It's going to be only 90 pesos, so that's, I think, 9 ringgit. So it's a promo. I'm not sure what the fare will be when
No, Dato' Reza Rafiq is very powerful. You can have Penang to Davao,
I know.
Ipoh to Davao some more. And I
That's
hope
the goal.
the
That's
first
the goal.
ever international airport in Perlis soon, Chuping
That's
Valley.
the goal, yes.
Datuk Reza, if the most testing of region in ASEAN, like Mindanao, has that kind of figure, and you're already talking about the third wave, but to fill in the third wave, what more do you need? You've done all you could from the federal and state government perspective, but from the people and the private sector, what more do you want? Because when I look at Grab, I want Grab motorcycle for Perlis because it's more practical. You know, if I take your double tracking, which the booking system, you know, is a challenge every time to go to Padang Besar or even to go to Arau. But I want to make sure if I'm going to Langkawi, it's end to end. It's about mobility end to end. So if a bike does it, why wait for a car? In Perlis, there's not many cars. So my question to you is, from the private sector and from the society itself, how do you want it to be? Because you promised us it's a grassroots-driven blueprint. So how do you want the capacity building at the private sector and the grassroots to come to? And maybe that can be also something to learn from Mindanao, because your advantage is you're starting fresh. So you don't have to have the baggages that we had out of so long.
Okay, Kamarul, I have to say this to you. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Betul kan? Okay, how we've done it is we went on this bottom-up blueprint approach, where we worked with the stakeholders, where they identified the needs. But we realized that people's wants need to be prioritized. So we prioritize them. We put them into buckets in terms of what can be done first, what can be funded first, what can be done in a little bit later, and what goes on the slow boat to China.
Okay.
Yeah. So with that, if you notice in one of the slides that I showed, there were numbers and there were colors. Yeah. So these were the priority areas that we are working on. Next steps would be to revolutionize the public transport in Sungai Petani,
okay,
in Manjung, yeah, and thereon move on to the next level. So we do it in bits and pieces because, again, we work with what's available and we follow a trajectory that's been set inside the plan.
Okay. A lot of your own video, Negaraku, many people say many times, digital. So can you please paint us a picture? Why can't Grab make the Northern Corridor its hub of data depository, like how the big ones use Scandinavian countries for that? Because they're looking at the lowest carbon footprint, for example. Sampai bila, until when would the Northerners need to go and relocate all the way to live in the Klang Valley to do high-tech, high-end, high-productivity supply chain jobs, for example? Can we have it in the Northern Corridor?
I think if Justin is willing to talk to me further, yeah, I'd be more than interested to listen. Yeah. Okay, but
digital.
Yeah, seriously, in the context of digital, the biggest challenge that I've had personally is the bandwidth. I used to enjoy when I was working in the Klang Valley. I used to enjoy this peaceful period as I was coming back to the house. I would call home and spend my time having conversations. I don't do that anymore because it's so stressful.
Right.
You know why?
I would guess.
Dropped calls.
Yes.
So I've stopped that. Yeah. The thing is, that has to be enhanced further. With that comes all the other things. The good news is we've developed new growth nodes, and with these new growth nodes, I'm not sure where Justin is, but with these new growth nodes, we have new tax and non-tax incentives for companies who are willing to come in and set up their operations in the Northern Corridor. Yeah? We have 7 growth nodes that each of them will have its own set of new, refined, enhanced tax incentives. So these would be the new magnets, yeah, to bring in private sector into the region.
Datuk, sometimes I've got to play devil's advocate. Because if the discussion is just linear, it will be boring, and it's already past 6. And we have to ramp it up for the Chief Minister or Yang Amat Berhormat Menteri Besar. Somehow I can feel the aura because he's a very charismatic person in the room. Sarawak, as a state, Dato' Reza, has announced a digital economy blueprint. They already have their own development bank. At the same time, they have their own multimedia commission version. So, if Sarawak is already, instead of talking about gigabyte, talks about petabyte, why can't Jelapang Padi Utara be Jelapang Broadband? Why can't we be the broadband bowl? Because we are here in the peninsula, not even across the South China Sea. So I'm putting that back to you. Then I go to Datuk Fauzi.
Okay, that is definitely one of the items that have already been earmarked in the Blueprint 2.0, and we are definitely taking this up. And it's, I think, members of the audience will be pleased to know that that one will not be in the bucket that's going on a slow boat to China.
Okay, that's a fast bucket going to Grab. Datuk Fauzi, economy digital. Whatever we talk about, if we do not exist as a digital entity, we're probably not going to make it even for the next 5 years.
Yes.
And even though it was a closed door, but I asked permission, this morning until noon, I was moderating HDC's roundtable, first ever dialogue with the Deputy Prime Minister. And the moment you go Al-Amin, he said, and Ad-Din, Islamic is already global. Same thing for digital. But if you go to Lazada or Zalora, where do you find these Sharia compliant halal products and services? We don't want that to happen to our SMEs and entrepreneurs from the Northern Corridor. So, Datuk Fauzi, you want to take that?
Yeah, thank you. Again, Kamarul, within the MTGT, ICT play a bigger role now. Under the IB 2018-2025, ICT is one of the key enablers. We have the main sectors of agriculture, agro-based industry, tourism, and halal as the main sectors. And the enablers are the border trade, investment, transport, connectivity, and ICT, and also the human resources. So that answers the whole thing. Okay. In every of the main sectors and enablers, ICT got to play the role. But again, if you ask me on the Lazada, Zalora, and what are the what you call the role of halal,
yes.
You must understand, I mean, for the audience, that under halal industry, there are 3 main factors.
Yes.
One is certification and standardization.
Yes.
Second is the halal industry.
Okay.
The third one is marketing and promotion. So what actually in our hands as the private sector players is on the 2 and 3, that is halal industry and the marketing and promotion. The standardization and certification is belong to the policy makers. Thank you.
Yes. I will go to my new sister from Mindanao, but after that I'm opening it to the floor because we have to run faster. Remember, Northern Corridor, if Perlis can be called Northern Lion, I think Parakians can run faster than the lion. So we've got to run this discussion through. But my question before I open it up to the floor is, since the president is from Mindanao, since the Mindanao authorities are very open and very gung-ho in making economic development a reality, if it's an ideal picture, what do you want from your brothers and sisters around this room to work with you on for Mindanao and the region of Southeast Asia? You know, there's a lot in common, you have said to that. The Islamic and halal market alone is 2.55 trillion, according to Hexa Research Group, data 2 days old. And nation export is just at 42 billion Malaysian ringgit, not even US dollars. So if we work together, that's one. But what would you want If I give you the chance to ask now, what do you want from your brothers and sisters here?
Thank you for the question. There's actually two things, two bottom lines I can think of. One is, let's please continue the dialogue. There's a lot of customs, immigration, quarantine, CIQS, alignment of policies that we need to continue to talk about in the platform of either the BIMP IAGA or the IMTGT. So let's please continue that dialogue until we can really come up with a seamless trans-border economy. The second is more exciting. I'd like to, of course, ask all of you to come and visit Mindanao. This is a very good time to visit Mindanao. Don't believe what you read in the newspapers. These are mostly written by people in Manila. Come and visit Mindanao. There's a lot of things we can show you. There's a lot of new things you can try. And because we're now working on more interconnectivity, it should be easier for you to visit our place in the coming weeks and in the coming months.
It can be a twin sister regional development with
We'd be
Dato'
very,
Reza.
yes, we'd
Yeah,
be very happy to
we'd
hear
be more
that.
than happy to collaborate with you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
In the interest of time, yes,
yeah.
Truth.
Sorry, just to add on that, I think one thing that we need to actually put emphasis on would be communities in the targeted border areas. Yeah, if you notice, the Border Economic Transformation Program that has been launched in Malaysia actually deliberately identifies these groups, with a focus on vulnerable groups, displaced person, the unserved, the underserved, so that economic opportunities can continue to be provided, so that they can be gainfully employed, so that they can be economically viable.
Correct. Yes. In the interest of time, Perak is a very state-of-the-art state. I'm not saying that because the Chief Minister is here. That's why they have K Perak. You see, the questions are there. Some people have ideas, they have the technical or technology support. Where do we source the support? I'm going to tap out all this in the local language and give it to Dato' Reza. Will government still consider agriculture as one of the most important economic income? Is it detrimental for the company if we were to pay higher commission for the agents? Farmers in Perak have to be educated about pesticides, insecticides. Dato', can you just tap out all this from the micro to macro and we end this session so that we can have the next session?
So all of this.
Yes.
Okay.
At one go. No need to be so specific, you know?
Okay. Actually, if you look at it, the Northern Corridor is unique because it has had the experience of 40 years of evolution in technology. And this has brought the ability to cause changes in how we do agriculture, in how we manage agriculture. So, yes, I believe that the government must still consider agriculture as one of the important economic activities, because it's not just about income, it's about food security. And we have done this. If you notice, there's this initiative called the Nestle Paddy Club, where we work with Nestle to actually grow rice. Normal rice, but planted in the Nestle way, and farmers' income has increased by 196%, arising from the fact that they sell the fruits of their labor to Nestle, and Nestle produces baby food. So as you know, anything with the health, wellness or nutrition theme attached to it attracts a higher premium. Then if you talk about some have ideas but don't have the technical or technology
come
support.
to your place, right?
Yeah, we have funding. Yeah, we have funding. I think some of you here have already benefited from this. We have funding for the small businesses. Yang jual tudung pun boleh juga mai jumpa kita.
Okay.
And for as long as your business is real, we have tools to actually help you take things to the next level. And we actually have the involvement of banks, to actually guide you and actually take you through what happens beyond the initial stage of financing.
Okay. Dato' Reza, I'll be sending an email to you as Anak Utara. Thank you so much, Dato' Reza, Dato' Fauzi.
Can I have 1 minute?
Go ahead.
On the...
It's just the Chief Minister eyeing me.
Yeah,
and,
it's on the number 2.
Go ahead.
As I mentioned to you, agriculture is one of our main sectors.
Yes.
And then during the opening ceremonies, people mention about, can I say, gross happiness index. And then our motto also is about sustainability and inclusive.
Yes.
Again, Brother Kamarul, I wonder, within the, what you call, paddy farmers, paddy industry, rice industry, within the rubber industry, within the oil palm industry, we have, can I say, the value chain.
Okay.
But the very bottom of the value chain, that is farmers, that is, we have to take care. Everybody within the value chain making money.
Yes.
Correct or not? But only farmers doesn't making money.
Okay.
So the word inclusive here is also about 75% to be shared. Thank you.
Dato', you're talking to a journalist who's born into paternal and maternal grandparents who were paddy farmers, not even in a state as luxurious as Perak, just from a small one called Perlis. But I think we've moved on. So I would like to thank all my three panelists. Can you please, again, give them a big hand of applause? All the other questions, Dato' Reza and his team will address it online. But if you're not satisfied about agriculture...
The last question, I think I already answered with all the incentives.
Correct, yes. We've already answered. For the agriculture, if you don't believe me, just watch Astro Awani, because the Chief Minister will appear there with SADC and talk about not just agriculture, but everything else for Perak and also for the northern region. So I would like to thank my three panelists. I will stay here in the interest of time and invite, this is the flexibility of Perak. You can be the moderator, then you can switch hat and become the MC spontaneously. So I'd like to thank Dato' Reza again and Dato' Fauzi and Ms. Wilma.
Thank you.
In the interest of time, I would now like to move on to our next event, which is the keynote 3. And the keynote speaker is none other than Professor Dato' Sri Dr. Nur Azlan Ghazali, the Vice Chancellor of University Kebangsaan Malaysia, UKM, and also a world-class economist. And of course, if he doesn't have DNA of Perak in his blood, he wouldn't be able to achieve all this. So please, Professor Dato' Sri Dr. Nur Azlan, can you please join me on stage? Takkan kuat tu je untuk anak Perak, come on. Yes. You see, typical Perakian. You say, I'm well known already, no need to introduce me. So over to you, VCUKM now, just joking.
So thank you very much. Thank you to the organizer for giving me a chance to share some thoughts here. I know that our time is a bit behind us, behind the schedule. I just want to share just a little bit. I'll try to make it very short, just to get some some essence of the issues that we are facing. Now, Dato' Sri MB, I don't know whether he's here, but I've been talking, Dato' Sri, talking about tiada terpinggal, tiada terpinggir. Basically, no one should be left behind. But interestingly, the real problem of growth is that whenever there are growth, there's always someone left behind. So my role here is actually how to propose to put some ideas, probably how best to make sure that no one left behind. But that problem is not only a problem of Perak, but it's a problem of all over the world. So don't blame Dato' Sri MB for anyone left behind for now. A very nice view. The reason I put this up because I was closely working with Chief Minister nearly about 10 years ago. It was somewhere in 2009 where we crafted this Aman Jaya development plan for Negeri Perak. And it's so nice to see some of this progress. For many of you who probably have not seen that, just a quick way of looking at it, these are all the trust. Sorry, it is in Bahasa, but pretty much looking at quality opportunities, quality living, and also quality income. So basically, it is not just about income, but it has to be translated into quality of living, as mentioned earlier by our Tuanku, that, progress beyond just about being richer. Now, I'll show you a glimpse of Perak economy. Again, allow the economists up here, me, to explain it. So don't make conclusion by just seeing the numbers, because the good thing about economics is that it can make you confused, and it can tell you a lot of stories with the same numbers, and they can put a different stories to it. So some of this might be scary, but I'll put it up so that we understand the context of where is it coming from. Now, this is a story of Perak. On the upper left, up there, basically what you see, the good thing, congratulations, Chief Minister, that growth in Perak is remarkable. Growth is great. But the real challenge for Perak, as rightly mentioned by Tuanku, I think after the keynote when we were outside just now, is that how to make sure that growth goes to everybody, as many as possible. And you see that this is the case of Malaysia. It's not only Perak. What you see is that, look at the dotted line, horizontal. Those are the commonly cited average for Malaysia. And what you see, there's a lot of bar charts that is underneath that dotted line. What does it mean? It means that we recorded good growth. The macro number shows very good, but we do have problem with respect to how to make sure that it trickles down to as many as possible. So this challenge of growth is not only uniquely Perak, neither uniquely Malaysia, but this is a unique problem of a growth process by itself. Therefore, the answer, in short, I would like to share with you is that the design of growth has to be right. We cannot come in with patches of things, meaning that design for growth and doesn't look at the distribution side and then comes in later on and try to patch where are the holes of this. So quickly, what it says to me is that the way I look at it from the economic standpoint is that there is a good growth in Perak. In fact, there are a couple of other states have a very good growth. Any numbers on the upper left charts above the horizontal line shows that growth are higher than the growth of Malaysia. But when you look at the rest of the three charts, you see that there are some issues with respect to how growth benefits as many people. Now, this is again Perak. The size of bubble is reflecting the state of agriculture. Surely Perak is not so much being categorized as agriculture, but you see down there that the moment Malaysia is up there, right in the middle there, and then anything to the left and bottom, meaning that productivity-wise, there's some chasing need to be done. Now, again, if you look at this in terms of the education, this is a challenge. Concentration of highly educated workers are concentrated on the upper right quadrants. And what you see down there in the colored charts, actually it should be animated. But anyway, what you can see there is that, again, this is a subject that was hotly debated earlier in the concurrent session in the morning, that participations of women, those in greenish means the participation of women is low. But again, I would like to caution you to interpret this number because these are formal numbers. I keep on telling that when my wife do my laundry, it didn't get into GDP. When I send my laundry to the laundry services, it gets into GDP. So be careful with economists. They calculate numbers for some reason and sometimes they omit quite a bit. Because in Malaysia, the informal sector are huge. You know, informal sectors probably maybe around 60% of the economy maybe. And some of these informal sectors are not entering all those formal numbers and so on. But anyway, if you want to plot it up, that's what you see. The interesting part that you see is that high income locations basically have more participation of women. Again, please do not assign causation yet. I mean, it's not necessarily that high income causing more women, neither is that women do cause high income. So please be careful about that conclusion. Now this is Perak, again quickly, very much services. Actually in Malaysia, almost all states have a large services. Sometimes people wrongly concluded saying that, oh, we have a lot of services, therefore we high income. No, it is wrong. Because when you talk about services, what matters is that what kind of services that you are doing. If you are doing a low-end services, a simple retailing and so on, that is not the kind of services that will take us to become a developed nation or advanced nation. We need different kind of services. Okay, my last chapter, dispersing benefits of growth. This is a real challenge. Of course, I don't want to overpromise you. If I really have the answer, probably I will not be here. I should be somewhere at the World Bank, leading the World Bank. But this is a problem. The reason that the World Bank are created pretty much in simple thing is that growth is not benefiting everyone. There are groups of people being left behind, and great that in Perak that become a main mantra for economic growth. What I would like to propose is basically to bring down the growth to a lower level. Basically, growth process has to be designed not just merely a top-down approach, but it has to be brought something from downside and take into account the strength of the district and localities. Growth and competitiveness are micro. You cannot make plan for growth just in Putrajaya or just in Ipoh. It has to be brought down to Bagan Dato, it has to be brought down to Parit Bunta, to Taiping, and so on. So we have to task the leadership at the district level so that they understand what is growth all about. And it has to create density. District focus, localization, and data-centric. Data is pretty much the next oil that we need. Every one of us, if you work without data, you are doomed to failure. Data is very important. Data collection, data coordination, data way of how to put all this analytic matters very much in terms of how you want to push for growth. Let's not worry about this. I mean, it's a bit too much. Okay, just a little bit at the end of it. This is my second last slide. Please grab this book by Hidalgo at MIT. This is a very interesting way of looking at how the economy is growing from the perspective of data. You know, a lot of us actually, we didn't really pick this up very well. What you see is that products, basically, if you look at the products, the product that you make is actually telling you what capabilities that you have. And these products are connected to each other. And what capabilities you have will determine where you go next. That's why when we look at the case of Perak, for example, some times back, we have a huge mining industries, but then where do we go after that? I mean, if it is today, where do we go from here? There are dynamics into it. So for example, a quick example is that, you know, if you are good at doing furniture, many would think that what you need to do next, basically if you have timber, you do furniture and so on and so on. Many feel that if you have oil palm, then you go into oleochemical and so on. But actually the product space thinking is not like that. Products are not connected by the raw ingredients. Products are connected by capabilities. So meaning that if you are good at cutting, then it's not about doing something else with what you cut, but you have to think about what else that need to be cut. So the capabilities, the way to grow is very important, and creating densities in the cities are very important. Economy grew by network. I saw Dr. Reza out there, huge 7 so-called growth areas that you're looking at, fantastic, but very important that for each one of them to draw the cluster map, to make sure the industries are connected. I'm a little bit concerned when to see halal industry next to solar industries. I can't see how they are connected. So we have to think about it, how to make sure that industries are connected and the clusters surrounding it are well defined. This is, I hope to see in Kuala Kangsar, in all the districts. The DOs must know very well how many companies, let me check all the DOs here. Do you know how many students from your district enter my university in what field? Most likely you don't know. So if you want to build marine industries, if you want to build tourism, we want to know how many kids from that area goes into tourism program in whatever universities. I mean, these are micro data. We need to have observatory of the districts to get into more. Okay, this is final one. I know I'm doing like that. Economic development. 1, don't measure in terms of development should not be measured as to buy. We tend to look at purchasing power, at income as a measure of progress. But this framework tells that look at the ability of what they can make rather than what they earn. Because sometimes you see that when products are not complex enough, they might have earned high income, but they are not able to produce complexity. This is products, within product, there are information move around with the products. And then finally, geographies. This is very important. I think the next moving forward for Perak and many other states in Malaysia, in many developing countries, is to take the geography of growth very seriously. You have to bring down the growth process to the districts. You cannot plan from the top and just leave it like that. It has to be involved people from the bottom. And finally, information. If any one of you are not without a smartphone now, please make sure you get one. You are already obsolete. Thank you very much.
Wow. If you go to Harvard to get all that gist in 50 minutes, you have to pay thousands of US dollars. But in Perak, you got it free from the very proud anak Perak of Professor Tan Sri. Thank you so much. I would like to go straight to the last event for the day, which is about discourse, which is about dialogue. And this is Dialogue 2, Leaders Dialogue. At Pangkor Dialogue, I've been exposed to a state of Indonesia I've never known, state of India, sorry. It's called Nagaland. But this year, we're going to have new leaders to talk about. So please put your hand together for me to invite the Honorable Kasit Piromya, career diplomat, served as ambassador of Thailand to Soviet Union, Indonesia, Germany, Japan, United States, and everything else. If you please come to the stage, and I will go through the points later. Please put your hands together for the Honorable Mayor Mick Kone, the current mayor of Oklahoma City, United States of America, and also to our neighbor in Asia, His Excellency Mohammed Hizbullah, State Minister of Resettlement and Rehabilitation of Sri Lanka. Last but not least, His Excellency Hermilando Mandanas, Governor of Province of Batangas, Philippines. And I'm not good enough to be the moderator for this very important meet of leaders. So I will throw this the typical northern way. Nadanya cekal, unggulnya fikir. Pangkornya kental, jiwanya bangsa. Tiada tertinggal, tiada terpinggir. Pimpinannya kekal, persadanya antara bangsa. Dijemput Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Seri Diraja, Datuk Seri Zamri Abdul Kadir, Chief Ministers, Menteri Besar of Perak to take over the floor and hence conduct Dialogue 2. Over to you.
Thank you, Komaru. I hope I'm sitting on the right chair. As you know, this morning what happened to it, because normally in the hall like this, we have a lot of program like this because we always come, and then that's the the place that I have supposed to deliver my speech. But it didn't happen this morning though. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take this opportunity first of all to welcome our special guest, as already introduced by our MC just now. Since we are running much of our time, so let us go briefly to hear from our leaders here. And let me introduce once again, first of all, our Honorable Kasit Piromya, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Thailand, on my extreme left, and His Excellencies MLA M. Hizbullah MP, who is now the State Minister for Rehabilitation and Settlement in Sri Lanka. His Excellency Hermilando Mandanas, who is the Governor of Batangas, the Philippines. Welcome, sir. Thank you for making your time again this year. Yeah. Your Honorable McCartney, thank you very much for flying all the way from the other side of the globe to be with us today, who is now the Mayor of Oklahoma. This morning we heard a good news from him. He said now he set his mind to go for governor next year, I guess. Yeah. Well, the topics proposed for our speakers today is on the good leadership. What constitutes good leadership in the context of sustainable development? Probably each and every one of us want to know. And we have our leaders here who are on the ground. Every day they are facing people. They are not giving a hypothetical analysis as per good leadership is all about. So probably they want to share from their experience of their everyday experience with the people. So may I call, probably I give them, each of them about 7 minutes to 10 minutes. And then if we still have time, we will allow for question and answer or probably any inquiries from the floor. So may I start with Meg first to tell us what is it all about, the good leadership and sustainable development.
All right.
We can go there.
A couple of points on leadership. In the United States, and specifically in my state, to enact change, you have to get a vote of the people. So if we're going to do something different, if we're going to fund something, we have to go to a vote and they get to decide. And so if I'm going to lead that change, there's a couple of things I have to keep in mind. First of all, which group of people is more likely to want to change? Younger people or older people? The answer would be younger people. Younger people adapt to change. They're usually wanting to change something. Older people, not so much generally. However, who's likely to show up on the day that we vote? Younger people or older people? Well, it's older people. So the art of politics at the mayoral level in the United States is really to get older people to vote for change that younger people want. And that is the art of politics to a certain extent. Because we're all trying to attract those highly educated 20-somethings. Those highly educated people who can drive our local economies, who can make the job creators and the entrepreneurs successful. Now, what types of cities are they looking for? They're looking for inclusive cities. They're looking for cities that have the arts. They're looking for cities that have the sports. They're looking for walkable communities that value good health. In essence, you can't really have a priority because you've got to do it all. Because this is also a very highly mobile generation. And if you're second on their list, it won't make much difference whether you're second or you're 10th. They're going to live where they want to live. And part of our city's story is realizing that having a good economy isn't attracting jobs. Having a good economy is attracting the workforce. Jobs will come to you if you can become a city where people want to live. The other aspect that I want to share here on leadership is acknowledging how education has changed in my lifetime. When I was growing up and getting my undergraduate degree, I was under the impression that my education was going to end when I was in my 20s. In fact, I can remember I graduated a little bit early of my class. I was 21. I graduated from the university. I had my degree. I was so excited that I never had to go to school again. And then I got into my 50s and realized just how out of date my education had been. And so I went back to school and pursued a master's degree. But I realized along the way that education has become a lifetime commitment. You have to continue to learn. So that's a responsibility for employers. They have to keep their employees trained, but it's also a responsibility for employees who have to stay at the top of their game. They have to continue to train. You know, when I was a kid, I remember my parents bought the technology of the day. It was a telephone that went on the wall in their bedroom. Just having a second telephone in the house was a huge jump in technology. And it was on the wall, which was kind of cool because the only other phone we had was on a desk. The key is this: 45 years later, when my parents had passed away and we sold that house, I picked the phone up off the wall and it still had a dial tone. It was still working after 45 years. Well, how many of us are going to have our current telephone for 45 years? after you've had a phone about 45 days, you're starting to think that maybe you need to get a new one. Maybe these new opportunities with new telephones are going to allow you to be more productive. Technology has increased so fast that we've got to keep educating ourselves. And so as leaders, we've got to communicate to our citizens that education doesn't end. It doesn't end in your 20s. It doesn't end in your 30s. It never ends. You've got to keep pushing your electorate to be more and more educated if you want to be successful in an economic development cities of tomorrow.
It's a good point, Mike. Probably want to hear from His Excellency's Council.
Thank you. I would like to answer your question by drawing upon a personal experience. I was in the chair of the ASEAN community in the year 2009. You must recall that the ASEAN community came into existence in the latter half of the year 2008. Then by 2009, I became the foreign minister of Thailand and had to chair the ASEAN for the next 12 months. Then I sat at home and asked myself, how was I going to lead the ASEAN community into the future, into the 21st century? Then I started to look at the European Union, which when I was a young diplomat, I did serve in Brussels 40 years ago. And I think most of us here also have visited Europe. The ease of traveling, borderless, no custom control and so on, the free movement of people, products, services, money and so on. And then I looked into Southeast Asia, the ASEAN community, and asked myself, how can we become a community if there were not to be the free flow of goods, of people, and so on. So the word connectivity came to the fore. I said that we have to try to connect the whole of ASEAN or Southeast Asia by land, by river, by sea, and by air. And within 6 months, we were able to produce an ASEAN community master plan for connectivity. And I think that has to do very much with leadership. You ask questions to yourself, the environment around you. What are the shortcomings? And what will be the possibilities? And then you put that as a vision. And you start to put the vision onto a piece of paper. And you do the consultation with your young officials, with the private sector, academicians, and so on. And finally, you have a draft. Then you present it to your colleagues, other foreign ministers, and finally to the leaders of all the ASEAN countries. So it's a lot of hard working, thinking, questioning, reading, consulting. I consulted officials from UNDP in Bangkok, to the Asian Development Bank, and so on, about infrastructure development. So I think to be a leader or to provide the leadership, you have to start with yourself first. Very important. Ask questions to yourself, come out with some sort of an answer, do the consultation process. And at the end, the decision is yours alone. It's a risk-taking. And sometimes decision-making is a very lonely affair. and you have to take the responsibility and the consequences. It might be positive or negative. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. I think so far we got a very interesting point from Mick just now. He was emphasizing on the lifelong education. And from Excellencies Kasi, mentioned about self-reflection. Keep on asking yourself, questioning what's good for the people and also for the community. Now, let us hear from our Excellencies Hamalindo on this point.
Assalamualaikum, good evening.
Salam.
To our, I would say, founder, Datu Seri Diranja, Dr. Samri bin Abdul Qadir, the other organizers of our Pangkor dialogue, and of course to my fellow panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. On behalf of the province of Batangas, as governor and as chairman of the Regional Development Council of the Republic of the Philippines, I would like to extend my sincerest gratitude for this exciting opportunity to learn and participate in this Pangkor dialogue, which we have already seen has evolved to the Davos of the other half of the world, where we have really spontaneous, open exchange of ideas, really a knowledge center, and we really participate, as we mentioned, in making the future, and with no one left behind. Really inclusive, and we want to make it sustainable. And I would like to contribute that and how really this leadership that we want to handle should be done. And I always believe that it's always like situational. We have to consider the resources that we have, the elements of development that we have. We have to make do with what we have, but using them with creativity, with being innovative. And these are the characteristics that we want to explore and exchange and learn from each other. I know that all of you are very passionate and very sensitive. We have to consider the constantly changing paradigms of development. What happened, for example, last year would really modify, change, and what we're going to do now and in the future. We have to, for example, political shift in political fortunes, which is basic in governance. Right now, very dominant would be the aggressive posturing of, let's say, People's Republic of China. And then the US with their America for Americans. With Europe, with the concerns that they have, with the Brexit, immigration concerns that they have. So there are so many, and here in ASEAN, our desire to work together, now that we're starting after 50 years together, we now are exploring how we could really integrate our resources to move forward together, addressing concerns in environment, from fossil fuel to green energy, as was mentioned, and also the concerns right now on basic daily things. And this is where in this particular forum, we who are attending here are really, I could see, more hands-on and situation and very specific. So I'd like to mention how we're doing it in the Philippines, in our province. Well, first we have to consider that the Philippines, we have a population of 105 million. Our land mass is actually slightly smaller than Malaysia. We have only 316,000 square kilometers. You have, I think, 330,000. Our per capita is less than 10% of Malaysia. So our focus really, as in our development, will have to be, as we are focusing, would be really on our people. We consider the people as our number one resource. Well, in reality, that is true. If you take a look at the revenue of our country, our foreign exchange, we have a lot, well, a big portion coming from our overseas workers. It would be closer to around $30 billion US dollars. And following would be our revenue from our business process outsourcing, which right now is already reaching around 20 billion US dollars. Without these generators, our development would have been halted. But right now, our growth is one of the highest in the region. And, but then, this has to be inclusive, which means it has to reach the poorest farmer in this farthest village in the Philippines. And right now, our concern is really that. It's concentrated on the urban area like Metro Manila. And with it, of course, the problems and public services in transportation, in garbage collection, in pollution, even in peace and order. So, my province is part of a region which is south. It's contiguous to our national capital region, known to all as Metro Manila. We have more people in Metro Manila. We have more workers than Metro Manila. And so that's why the move right now is really to shift economic activities of government, not only especially national, outside of Metro Manila. This move has been started more than 40 years ago. But we are rather slow, and we are very much affected by shifts in political administration. We are very democratic, and you know, our number one industry, as we always call it, is what we call the signature industry. You know, before anything moves, there are so many steps, the red tape, and then you have so many people who are going to sign. So it's so that is the one that we are really cutting right now. And the process will, of course, focus on the people. We'll be able to start on the basic. As was mentioned earlier, the biggest investment that we are trying to make, for example, in our province, which is in terms of population, we're more than 4 times bigger than Perak, is really an education. So we do it in terms of, well, increasing the number of scholarships. When we first became governor, it was not yet a practice to give scholarships. So I started with more than 5,000 a year. But we have term limits, so after 3 years, after 3 terms, and I had to leave as governor and went to Congress for another 3 terms. And now when I'm back, well, I've noticed that fortunately, the mayors, the congressmen, they instituted also, they promoted the scholarship program. But the province, now, when it came in last year, for my 4th term as governor, we had only less than 1,000 After a year, now we're closer to 11,000. Next year in our budget, which we're preparing right now, it should be over 20,000. And year after that, and the last year of my fourth term, it would be at least 30,000. We value very much education. And this is, I would say, a tradition that we got from the United States that colonized us at the end of the 19th century up to 1946. So for 50 years, that if there is a legacy that we got from the Americans, it's really this passion for education, which is really benefiting us right now. As I mentioned, the sources of revenue which we have really come from our people. Except that now we are lagging way behind. And so we have to have more schools, we have to have more facilities. Just 2 months ago, our president, also the new president we have, signed already the law that making it free education in all college and universities, public, I mean government, everybody who enrolls. And one of the biggest state universities also in my province. We have like 45,000 students. So the concern right now of our budget minister is where to get the funds. As I said, our revenue is not probably just less than 10 times, as less than 10% of Malaysia. So that is the emphasis. And part of it, of course, is the development of our national broadband. We hope that we will be able to connect online all our schools, at least the public schools, part of our education, our programs, and of course, giving them the necessary equipment and solutions so that we would be able to improve and reach out to the farthest village in the Philippines. There's one advantage which we have, especially working overseas, and that is the language, English, almost as good as the British. Yeah. And of course, equally important is our health program. Again, I instituted when our government started with the insurance system, giving insurance cards that would allow the holder free medical treatment, but only up to a certain level. As a matter of fact, it started with only up to $1,000, but that meant a lot. And it promoted, and now the concern is the distribution. Yeah. Again, our province has been awarded as the one that has given up the most number of free health cards. And in our hospital, provincial hospitals, although we lack equipment and probably other facilities, we try to really shoulder the cost of the indigent patients that we have. And of course, not only health, education, we focus very much also, of course, it is necessary, on the livelihood and employment. This is where we rely a lot on the private sector. We are a capitalistic economy. Yeah. And so the private sector, it's only in areas where the government cannot, where the private sector cannot go in, that our government would enter. And right now in the province of Batangas, being so close, we are trying to assist, realizing that the national government or the central government doesn't have the necessary funding to develop the entire country. We are now pushing that local government should really facilitate or assist. Given all we're asking for would be really local autonomy, following the principle of subsidiarity, allowing the local governments to do whatever they can do for the national government not to burden us with a lot of red tape, a lot of prohibitions, regulations, and not only supervision, but sometimes control of basic. And it shows, especially right now, that there are certain level of competency. In management, let's say the Peter principle, that they have reached their level of incompetence, undertaking situations like construction of roads and bridges in far-flung places, which they cannot really handle, and even promote. So, local autonomy, principle of subsidiarity, it's a matter only in private practice. I know that here we have not only government people, but especially private sector and social society, civil society. And it is only a matter of delegation, the control, devolution, really delegating functions which should be handled. So we are now expanding the national, international seaport in our province. We have right now 3 times more passengers in our province than the port of Manila. The revenues in our province, the taxes, excise tax, value-added tax, and related taxes, we collect more in our province than the port of Manila. But we cannot yet equal the container port. So that's what we're expanding right now.
Thank you.
So using our own funds, we reclaim with the private sector. So we undertake those functions. And all of this leading to this one.
So we stop there for a while, and then probably we can also get our another speakers to get his response from the Sri Lanka's experience. Please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We would like to thank His Excellency Zamri Abdul Qadir, the Chief Minister of Perak, especially organized such an event, international conference, and inviting us to participate and study and share the knowledge. Especially the leadership is important to develop the sustainable development of the infrastructure, education, everything. The leadership is important. Chief Minister himself proved that he given the leadership to this Perak province. There are many states in the country, but only the Perak province organizes the international event. Even Sri Lanka, we have many, 9 provinces. Only the central government organizes some event. We are very happy, we are very thankful to His Excellency, such event. Really, Sri Lanka, about 22 million people. We had the big civil war, and after the war, now only we are starting developing the country. So through that, especially the leadership is important to develop the country, give the leadership. Especially on the education side, now, of course, the Malaysia is very far compared to our country. Now we have opened in Sri Lanka to come to international universities to open the branch in Sri Lanka. So we would like to invite Malaysian education institutes, universities, private institutes to come to Sri Lanka to invest. In the meantime, the good opportunity in Sri Lanka for the investment in the agriculture sector, as well as the tourism sector. There's a big demand. So we would like to use this opportunity, the forum, the both way. Perak investors come and invest, and we also can benefit. So this is the way the leadership to organize. So when I was just walking to this conference now, I saw one business manager was talking about the durian. He said, I need more and more durian fruits for my factory. When I just passing, I hear that. Where in our country we have enough durian, we don't know what to do with this. So I just immediately stopped that. I said, okay, why not we benefit both parties? I will export durian, we'll get our product good market. So you do product here, so the Perak also benefit on that. So he was very happy. So this is the way the leadership to organize, to develop the province. So the leadership means just not only the lead, to give develop the people, education, infrastructure, sustainable everything is very important. So it is very happy I participate in this event, and we would like to thank Section Chief Minister to continue such event, and we'll give full support in future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we just listened to our four renowned speakers just now. I'm not sure whether we still have time to allow for any response from the floor. If you don't mind, if I can allow one or two, very briefly, if you wish to ask any questions. Yes, please. Very brief, straight to the point, and economize your words. Please get the microphone quickly. Yeah, he's over here. On your right there. Just come over, yeah. Oh, okay. We let the gentleman, and then we come to you, yeah? All right. We have two. Just proceed. Yeah.
Right, my name is Noor Muhammad. I'm from Penang. I'm here because I'm representing villages from the northern state. People who can speak English, I represent them here, and I come here and ask questions on their behalf. The problem we are facing currently is that we have more universities producing graduates, right? And then we have factories closing down, and people who are at the retirement age, they start losing their job. And when factories close down, they will keep the younger people. And then the senior people who got with the higher salary will be given the first opportunity to be retrenched. So this is a situation where we are facing, especially in Penang. And we have a state government which focus on making the Penang government is like they are more interested in developing the real estate. And when they develop the real estate, the prices of the houses are expensive. And for 2 terms, the Penang state government, they have not brought any new factory. Every month for the last 8 years, we've been hearing that in a quarter you have factory closing down, going to China and going to Vietnam, but there are no replacement. So I'm not sure what is going on in Perlis and Kedah and Perak, but what I see is that Perak, Kedah and Perlis have got their own initiative of giving back to the people. So when you have graduates from the university outpacing the growth, the problem is that we have growth, but the growth is not fast enough and it's not big enough to cater for the new graduates and also for the elderly people who are being retrenched from the factories. So this is concern from the people on the ground, which I'm asking the question.
Thank you for sharing your,
Thank you very much.
Your concern. Can we have another question from the floor? Introduce yourself.
Sorry. My name is Hong K. Chai. I am from Penang. My question is to the 4 distinguished panelists there. You're all a politician. If I were to Google for the word leadership, I will not be surprised there will be few meanings of definition for leadership. So, my question to you here is, as politician, what do you consider as the mother of leadership so that a country or a nation or a community can run smoothly like food with taste or food without the taste? Thank you.
So you got a question. Yeah, any one of you, if you want to respond. Mick, you want to respond immediately, quickly?
Could you define the question tightly there?
The first question is about on the more university that we have, at the same time, we are having factories being closed down because of due to the recent developments. And particularly, he was referring to his state, Penang. It's not far from here. And so he wants to get a response. How do you see this? Probably to find some answers to it. Probably they need to recast in terms of the employment and unemployment issues. But the second point, the second question, I miss it because I think probably the sound is not really here on the stage. Can anybody?
I think it's about representative democracy with politicians and political parties. Are they out of touch with the reality? Is that the question?
Is that the question?
Understand that
out
question?
Of touch, yeah. Oh, that's a question.
Well, if you're out of touch, you're probably out of a job pretty soon. I mean, you have to have the pulse of the people you represent. You have to interact with them. You have to, one of the things I enjoy about local politics is that the people I represent come to me every meeting and stand 10 feet away from me and plead their case. I'm not hidden off in some state capitol. I'm not hidden off in some United States capitol or federal capitol. I'm right there with them. And, people can approach me at the grocery store and do. They can approach me walking down the street. And so I think it's a very good question, but it's just more complicated than that. Because, we all inherit governing bodies that we didn't create. And it dawns on me that, if we were starting over, would we have, the types of organizations we have today running our government? Would we have this department and that department? But changing now, when they're already in progress and they've already evolved is extremely difficult. So if you think that government's dysfunctional, if you think government's not efficient, it's not. But pushing the reset button is really, really difficult. And the best political leaders are dealing with the cards that they've been dealt.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone to respond?
May I have an attempt? I think we have been living with representative democracy. And the representatives started to represent themselves and not the people. So I think one has to combine representation with more joint consultation and deliberation and joint decision making at all levels of governance. The past 1 year, I have been a member of the Reform Steering Assembly set up by the military government. They invited a few politicians to join the assembly. And for the past 1 year, I have been going all over Thailand. And I came to the conclusion that the American way of the so-called town hall meeting is very, very important for the democratization process. The more that the people from all walks of life can meet with their local authorities and representatives and so on, the joint decision-making would come. And that would be, I think, related to the first question about jobs creation. In Penang, hopefully the governor, the politicians, local and national, the business sector, the academicians, and so on, should have the forum to meet together as much as possible. And through that, I think some sort of job creation would come about. So I would urge more consultation in these open societies of ours. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency Kasi. Probably before I conclude this session, I would like to also share some of the thought that I have, also my own personal experience in managing the state. Because I think I'm one of the actors as well here. I always also pose the same question, actually, in terms of our effectiveness as a leader. We raised the question of being a good leader. As you rightly pointed out just now about whether being good in your credential in terms of your academic backgrounds can testify that you are really a good leader, or you are morally, they said morally good, you are a really good leader. But to me, the most important thing is whether you are an effective leader or not. That will answer one of the questions that you raised just now about whether you are out of touch from the people or not. It's very important. It's why one of the policies we implementing in the state of Perak, I and the members as a team, we introduced the concept of permukiman. Permukiman, I don't know how to translate it into English. It says simply, I just go down to the ground, staying with the people, and sometimes I have to be there for a week and listening to the people, the grouses, or even sometimes their angers, because we have to attend to the problems. But it was very difficult, initially. It's not easy because you go and, you submit to the people, and then you are subject to, sometimes some people subject to bully or whatever, they want to kick you, punch you, but eventually you really listen to the point, what they want to raise. We have been doing that since my time. This coming to my 9 years, together with my team, all my EXCO members. We make it as a practice. So the next one will be next week. I'll be in one district. I'll be staying there for 5 days. And every day we have about 5 to 10 programs all together within that 5 days, involving all my state ministers. We will do, and also meet the people for about 130 programs. That's really effective for your information. And another point, it's a different concept actually in the state of Perak, how we manage it, because you know that people living in a different setting, in urban, in rurals, and a different demographic pattern as well. And we introduced the concept of 3P, P in Malay, Padang, Perasaan, and Penyelesaian. Or, in English, we call 3F. F. Yeah? That is, first F is you go to the field. Go down. Yeah? Field. And then you go to the field. You play with the people. That is play in the sense that you are, you mingle around with the people, listening to the grouses and complaints. And that's when you go down, that will apply the second F, that is, you feel it. Yeah, you feel it. That will count, the feelings, the empathy to the problems that people are suffering. Then when you have that feeling, you will immediately find solution. Or if you fix the problem. Simple. I have been promoting that. It's like a calling to each and every one of us in the state of Perak. I told each and everyone, you don't need a philosopher or the thinkers to do your service to the people. At the end of the day, in the democratic sphere, you need the people to support you. So what are the bases for the people to support you? So at the end of the day, because whether they can meet you, they know you, and we have been doing that over the last 8 years. So with the support we have, thanks, the people of Perak keep on supporting this kind of policies. And this is really amazing if you can see how we solve certain problems that sometimes we tend to, disregard some of the small issues. We think that it is not important, but actually it is very important to the people. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to extend further our discussion due to our time's constraint, because we have another function after this, which the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia is coming for our dinner tonight. All of you are welcome. But we will have in the different venues. It's not far from here. It is going to be right in the city, at the ICC Ipoh Convention Center. The program will be at 8:30. All of you will be there. So let me stop there with your permissions.
Fine.
Our respected
Thank you.
speakers. Yes. Then over to you, Kamaru. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. A big round of applause. And I think the summary also answers some of the questions on the board. And there's no better way to end rather than the Chief Minister's word, but I have to try. So for the benefit of our international guests, the island is heavenly. Pangkor is the name. The dialogue is timely and heavenly. Pangkor dialogue is the name. So if you haven't gone to Pulau Pangkor, please go. But for the locals here, anak Pangkor di sini bersungguh ikhtiar. Berserilah Perak, kita bisa usaha segala. Dialog Pangkor hari ini ditangguh sebentar. Kembalilah esok, kita bicara wara semula. Pukul 8.30 ya. Terima kasih. Datanglah kembali kerana ada pelbagai lagi diskusi. Terima kasih kepada Yang Amat Berhormat. Terima kasih kepada semua. Thank you to all the panelists. If we can invite you down so you can prepare for the next event. And for your information, for our friends from overseas, the Deputy Prime Minister is also a proud Perakian. So see you tonight and see you early tomorrow morning.